look, it's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce Roland this morning. I've known him for quite a number of years now, since he started to come along to the centre in Sydney. His first contact with the movement was actually through the UK, with family sort of connections. But you could say that he came to the Dharma really here in Sydney. And he's now living in Cairns, has been for a couple of years. Roland is a GFR Metra. He's training for ordination to become an order member in the Triratna Buddhist order. Look, Roland has, he certainly will have something worthwhile to say. I know that for sure. He's a real thinker. He contemplates, he reflects, he really works hard. He's a real Dharma farer. He's he's not along for the ride in any kind of a way. And I really appreciate when I have a chance to talk with him. I appreciate, the depth of his thoughts and his insights. Yeah, I think that's about it. Without, much more to say, I'm really looking forward to hearing Roland. And away you go, Roland.
Thank you for your kind words, Nandavani. Yes, Sydney, this is Cairns calling. Good morning from a soggy, wet Cairns. We've had a lot of rain here. It's a great pleasure to join you this morning, and I want to talk to you about something that is very alive for me right now. And whilst reflecting on composing this talk, I realize has been very alive for me throughout my life. It has given me inspiration and is a way I outwardly express my thoughts and feelings. It is for me Kalyana, which is the Sydney Triratna's current theme. Kalyana could be translated as beautiful, spiritual, meaningful, alive, inspirational, liberating, transcendent, and perhaps even awesome. So what you may ask is alive for me around this theme, and what can be described with all these evocative and meaningful words? For me, it is sound. Growing up in Hackney, East London, I was exposed early on to a rich mix of sounds, with bassy reggae music often booming out from the Caribbean community, blending with the penetrating vocals and percussions from the music of the Bangladeshi and Pakistani communities. There were fruit and veg market stallholders peddling their produce amidst the constant hum of the city. Whilst living in Japan, I was immersed in a very different array of sounds that were all instantly very alien to me. From Disney-sounding jingles to help you cross the roads, enka music, and the instrument of the shamisen. In the two places I lived, there was also a lot of snow in winter, and sound has a very interesting quality in snow. I now live in a beach suburb just north of Cairns, where there are many different tropical sounds. There are sounds of the palms gently kind of blowing in the breeze, the call of frogs, toads, and many other insects, and also the sound of monsoon rain amongst periods of beautiful, deep silence. Since I started to meditate, my relationship with sound has been transformed. Like the effect mindfulness of breathing has on you, a mindfulness of sound can be a very immediate way, an available way to understand and experience the Buddha's key insights of impermanence and conditionality. We can learn to look for the marks of conditioned existence, or three lakshanas in sounds. These are that all sounds are impermanent. They are unsatisfactory because of their impermanence. They are devoid of anything permanent or fixed with no lasting abiding essence. This new aliveness in the experience of sound and in the silence that separates the sound has come about through having a new relationship to my sense of hearing. Hearing is viewed as a secondary sense to the visual sense, but in meditation, whether your eyes are open or closed, this visual sense is largely subdued, and our hearing becomes more primary. People often think of a visual beauty, but sound is, I think, no less beautiful. Visual forms can easily give the illusion of something out there, which is separate from us, that has a substantial essence, whereas sound has a much more subtle and formless quality that is more elusive to track or trace. The Buddha tells us that the conditioned things are impermanent, insubstantial, and as a result, painful. But sound, when seen in its transience, can become a thing of beauty, or Kalyana. And sound, although not being a true refuge in an ultimate sense, can be a gateway to the transcendental, and a tool to spark and awaken our imagination. We can learn to hear the true refuges of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, or the three jewels, adding a new dimension to our audible landscapes. Pleasant sounds, such as the sound of a meditation bell disappearing into the distance, an echo reverberating around the room, a plain sound traveling in the space above our heads, waves breaking on a beach and then retreating and blending into the ocean. All of these sounds coming and going, advancing, then retreating, can be a very beautiful and meaningful reminder of impermanence, and can be a mindfulness of purpose, a sati sampajana. The Buddha in the Bahia Sutta tells us that here in Bahia, you should train yourself thus. In the seen will be merely what is seen. In the heard will be merely what is heard. In the sensed will be merely what is sensed. In the cognized will be merely what is cognized. In this way, Bahia, you should train yourself. Not overlaying a personal narrative or establishing a central fixed self in addition to our immediate sense experience is what is being pointed to here in this excerpt from the sutta. We must guard the sense doors to protect ourselves from being overcome by passion for the sense object, which leads to dukkha. But if we understood this in the wrong way, it might suggest trying to narrow or limit what is experienced, or in some way trying to filter out or ignore what is being heard. I think it is essential to try and include and open up to all the sounds we hear, integrate them into our experience without eliminating, excluding, reacting, scrutinizing, judging, or trying to find a utility or purpose for them. If we can do this, we can hear them as sacred and beautiful, learning from their beautiful transience. In the meditation practice of just sitting, it is possible to sit with all that we experience, arising and passing, being totally accepting in an all-inclusive and non-reactive space. Experience a depth to our awareness beyond our normal surface superficiality. William Blake in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell exclaims, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. So how does this transformation and expansion of our senses take place? And how can we experience the infinite? Essentially, I think, in becoming more sensitive to hearing and listening, without grasping at what is being sensed, cultivating positive emotion, we can meet our experience with wisdom and compassion. I realize that much of my previous stress and anxiety has been due to an inability to identify with my senses in an all-inclusive way. Narrowing my experience, I was trying to separate, exclude, and do battle with anything unpleasant that I came in contact with. Living constantly on guard, fearing what might be coming next. So that is an important question we face. How can we find silence and stillness, including the noise of our modern lives? In an era of sensory overload, with the volume of our experience often turned up to maximum out of our control, how may we regain some control? I think we need to try and relate differently to our sensed experience. Instead of doing battle with input or trying to switch things off, we need to engage lovingly with them and try to find room for all sounds we encounter, trying not to get too overwhelmed by surface noise or seduced by superficial distraction. Isn't it ironic organizations like NASA have sophisticated equipment to detect sounds from the outer reaches of the cosmos? Yet we too have our own sophisticated equipment, but sometimes have trouble concentrating on the sounds that are in our immediate environments, or just choose to switch them off entirely. When we encounter such unpleasant sounds as a dog's bark, a police car's siren, a dripping tap, traffic in the road outside, a door slamming, or the neighbor's leaf blower, can we train the mind to allow them into our awareness without reacting to them? Buddhism is an oral tradition, and much of what we have access to today is the result of the spoken word and Dharma expressed in sound, and the result of people having the ability to listen, understand, and then pass on. References to sound and symbolism are rich, with the Vajra bell used in rituals, and the Bodhisattva of wisdom, Manju Gosha, being the gently voiced one. Milarepa, the great Tibetan yogi, is often pictured cupping his ear, listening to an inner voice of the Dharma, expressing insights with song. He is known for singing the Dharma, his mind completely inspired and illumined with the knowledge of liberation, pouring forth its wisdom spontaneously with ease in the shape of beautiful verses. Mahayana Buddhist texts, such as the Surangama Sutta, include the existence of meditative states by means of listening. The most famous episode is that of Vinapa, one of the 84 legendary Mahasiddhas. In his youth, Vinapa was a young Indian prince who spent all of his time playing the veena, a stringed instrument similar to the lute. In his obsession, he barely ate and naturally did not express the least interest in learning the art of regency. His dismayed parents had the yogi Buddhapa summoned to separate him from the music. Since the young man rejected any spiritual practice that did not include his beloved lute, Buddhapa asked him to contemplate the sound of the strings without conceptualizing it, without distinguishing between the sound itself and the mental impression it produced. 9 years later, the story goes, the prince understood the sound that springs from the source of all sounds. He heard the melody from which all melodies arise. This was his song. With perseverance and devotion, I mastered the Veena's errant chords, but then practicing the unborn, unstruck sound, I, Vinapa, lost myself. Sound, speech, song, and music have the power and energy to move and motivate you. Like the beat of a drum, sound has a Vajra-like quality. Its waves can travel through and penetrate solid objects in space. Then there is silence, the space in which sound exists. Much like our inner stillness, it's in this space that thoughts are perceived. It is a wonderful relationship that sound and silence have, the active and the passive, sound complementing silence, and silence complementing sounds. The great jazz musician Miles Davis has said, "A painting is music you can see, and music is a painting you can hear." Sound has the ability to communicate truth and meaning. It is profoundly mysterious, having the ability to transcend boundaries and limitations. I think it is something that has brought people together throughout our evolution, resulting in our music, language, and speech. It is one of the primary ways we express ourselves. We can lend our voice to a movement we feel passionately about. We can demonstrate our pleasure or displeasure through our voice. And just as importantly, we can listen to one another and learn to respect another's point of view and respect our diversity. Speech, of course, can be used unskillfully in the form of untruthfulness or malicious speech when words are used as a weapon to wound. It is no wonder that speech features no less than 4 times in the 10 precepts of ethical and skillful conduct we follow as Buddhists. Sangharakshita has said, "Without truthful speech, there can be no civilization and culture. Indeed, there can be no spiritual life and no spiritual community." I would like to now turn to mantra, which can be translated as instrument of thought to protect the mind, which when recited with conviction can have a liberating quality. Anyone who has participated in puja and recited the mantras of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will know that when you do this in unison, it has immense power. Mantra can be an outward expression of our faith and devotion. It can be Kalyana, the truth, a protector, a unifying gateway to the infinite. It can communicate the essence of enlightenment, which we are not separate from. I have just read the Heart Teachings of the Enlightened Ones by Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, one of Bhante Sangharakshita's teachers, which is a commentary on the root text by Patrul Rinpoche. And in this text, sound is mentioned many times, and from which I've taken the following verses, which illustrate how we can connect with sound and mantra. To recognize sounds as mantra is the crucial point of recitation practice. Clinging to sound as pleasant or unpleasant is liberated into its own nature. Conceptualizing speech and sound is what causes delusion. If you recognize it as mantra, resounding yet void, it is Chenrezi. It is none other than the sublime lion's roar. All sounds have never been other than speech of the sublime Chenrezi. Recognizing them as mantra, resounding yet void, recite the 6-syllable mantra. So the 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, is the mantra of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, or in Tibetan, Chenrezi, who represents the quality of compassion within the enlightened mind. And Avalokiteshvara has been a symbol for the dynamism of the Triratna movement. It is perhaps the most widely known of all mantras, and its meaning is Om has a mystical meaning, suggesting primordial reality or the potential for enlightenment that pervades the universe. Mane means jewel. Padme means lotus. Hum, like Om, has no conceptual meaning. The central part of the mantra connects us Hum with Om, which is the potential for awakening that lies within the universe and within us. So effectively, we're saying, Om, this is the potential for enlightenment, which Mani Padme, aka Avalokiteshvara, makes available for me. Mani Padme, O Avalokiteshvara, you are my path to enlightenment. Hum, here's me asking for and hopefully embodying enlightenment. It is said that this Mani mantra contains the whole of the Dharma or Buddha's teachings and has the power or blessings of all other mantras. To recite this mantra is to help purify the minds, seeing through our ignorance that binds us to the wheel of samsara and consequently separates us from nirvana or freedom. For me, this mantra symbolizes the very essence of sound and Kalyana. I am very grateful to have sound and mantra in my life. So I'm not sure how much longer we do have. I did have a little practical practice, but it may not have enough time. So perhaps we'll go straight to the questions. My questions are, I could probably put them in some kind of chat box, maybe. Would you like that, David? Yes? Okay. Let me see if I can work that out. So the questions are, I'll just quickly go through the questions. 1, do you find certain sounds beautiful? Which ones and how do they affect you? 2, do you find certain sounds irritable or intolerable? Which ones and how might you relate to them differently? I personally don't like the neighbour's leaf blower, as you could probably hear in my talk. 3, how do you find silence and stillness within the noise of your modern lifestyle? Okay, so that's pretty difficult for me. Okay, so let me just find the chat box.
So, Roland, just while you're doing that quietly, yeah. I just want to say thank you very much for that really challenging talk. There's a lot to work with in there, and I'm sure that we'll all benefit greatly from it. It was really, really quite, I thought, quite original, a really wonderful take. So congratulations. Thank you very much. And we will all tussle with those questions now. Thanks.